podcast. I'm going to do things a little bit differently today. So I actually have this episode out on YouTube as well. So you can go and check it out if you are just listening. Enjoy. If you would like to watch the presentation, go ahead and log into YouTube. All right. So this podcast that I want to talk about today is how online courses can set you free. How online programs, online courses, as you guys already know in my audience, I use these terms interchangeably. And the reason for that is because it's all about creating an online experience. Whatever that means to you, it could be an online course, it could be a program, it could be a hybrid experience, it could be a membership. It doesn't really matter what it is. What matters is you being able to package your expertise and get it out in a way that allows you to leverage your time. And that's where we're going to go today, is how online experiences can set you free. Okay, so the reason that online courses or programs can set you free is that they give you leverage. So let's talk about leverage. I was listening to a presentation the other day and somebody was talking about the concept of leverage. And I would say that I've heard this over and over and over again, but I didn't really understand what the term meant until I heard a couple of different analogies. So I want to just cover a couple of those today. So often when I think about leverage, I think about going from point A to point B, right? And so there are a lot of different ways to get from point A to point B, right? Like you can meander, you can, walk, you can run, you can fly, you can drive, you can do all sorts of different things. But when you think about how do you get there efficiently, how do you get there in a way that helps you really sort of maximize your time, your effort, and your ability, it is all a matter of how quickly you can get there, right? I mean, let's be honest. So if you think about like taking a vacation, this is a big one for me, is that I grew up flying everywhere. And my husband grew up driving everywhere. And so when we first got married, it was fascinating to me that he was like, "What? You fly there? Well, we could just drive there." And I'm like, "Well, yes, we could drive there, but it takes like 10 times the amount of time to drive there as it does just to fly." And so that was sort of my first sort of inkling that there was, multiple ways to do things, and sometimes there are more efficient paths, right? So we keep going down this path, so I could walk to a particular location, I could bike to a particular location, or I could drive. All three of those are viable options. They all have different benefits, right? And they all have different drawbacks. But if I'm looking at how do I get there as fast as possible with being as efficient and as sort of clear as I need to, then it's how do I get there the fastest way while still maintaining, a budget and maintaining, some semblance of priority or whatever it is, right? And so then you start asking yourselves, how do you get there faster? How do you get there easier? How do you get there without taking so much time and effort? And that's where leverage comes in, right? The leverage of a car takes me somewhere much faster than walking naturally, right? But the leverage is the car. And so when you equate this to your business, what's so important about thinking about leverage is how do you leverage your time, your expertise, and your financial resources, right? So when you think about it, like you're always going to have some sort of constraint in the business. A financial constraint, a time constraint, a delivery constraint, whatever it is, there's always going to be a constraint. Your job as a CEO is to eliminate the constraints. So a big way to do this is through leverage. Okay, because leverage allows you the ability to grow beyond your time. So again, if you take this into a business example, I could help 10 customers just by myself doing the work that I do, right? I could have a different process for each one of them. I can, spend time with every client, as much time as I want to with every client. And I can do that up to maybe, I don't know, 10 clients. But the challenge is when I want to grow beyond where I am today, that very quickly becomes inefficient. That very quickly becomes me spending more time helping all of the different customers. And so often we're not able to do that because we get to a critical mass. We get to a critical place where we're looking and we're like, oh my gosh, I don't even have this many hours in a week. Or I don't want to work this many hours in a week helping various customers. And so when you start looking at leverage, you have to go in your business. A lot of times you start walking, right? Like you start by just starting small. You're kind of getting organized. You're kind of getting things, put together. You just want to figure out if there's an opportunity in the market. That is a way that you can walk forward, right? You can walk, you get a couple more customers in, you start running, and then it isn't until you get to that place where you all of a sudden you need to get there faster, right? You need to figure out how do you help all these people within the amount of time that you have. So that's what leverage allows you to do. So there's 3 different ways to use leverage in your business. 1 is you hire a team, right? 2 is you create systems. And 3, you automate some of the core or repeatable tasks that you have in your business. All 3 of these are necessary for you to grow, but you can look at each one of these a little bit differently, right? And so when you think about an online experience, what you're doing is you're creating automations and systems to help streamline what you do in a way that is repeatable and helps people go through a process without you, right? You're using a virtual version of yourself to help people through this process. There's a dozen different ways that you can use this in your business. You can use an online experience to onboard your customers. You can use it as a way to give them all the same foundation and base, so you can help them and help them tweak what they're doing, or make it better, or whatever you want to do, right? Or you can use it to actually run your entire business, and on top of that, you can use it as an accelerant, right? So watch these, and then we talk about them. Going through and using your online experience in systems and automation to help streamline the process. Then the team comes in when you want to have them do the process, right? They are taking the process. They are helping to work things forward to get the client results. So here's the thing, is in each one of these, you have to have a defined process or framework in which you help your customers. So if you are still in the place where you're just starting to help customers for the very first time, you may not have all your systems and process and frameworks identified, right? Because you may not. So that's when you're walking. When you're running, you've got some of them defined, you're still kind of tweaking things and you're changing things. When you want to jump in the car, that's when you take what you've been doing in helping your one-on-one or done for you clients, and you say, okay, so how do I go through this process? Either how have I applied this process, or how do I help my customers apply this process? And define it, write it down, and then you're able to hand it off in one of these 3 ways. So even if an online experience, you're like, oh, I don't want to package my expertise into an online experience. Well, in order to grow your business, at some point, you have to create your proprietary framework. You have to create the process in which you help your customers. Until you do, you're never going to get to the place where you can grow and scale, because every single time you help somebody, you are recreating the wheel. And you know who you are if you're doing this, because you are busy and you are constantly feeling like you're repeating yourself over and over and over again. That is a good indication that it's time to sit down and map out your proprietary framework or the process in which you help people. Then what you can do is use leverage in that framework or that process in order to get one of these 3 things sort of working in your business. Okay, so like I said, what you need for each one is that repeatable process or proprietary framework. It doesn't really matter what you call it. I don't care what you call it. I would say that if you think of it as a proprietary process, it helps you define your methodology as it's different from somebody else's, and how you show up as an expert and teach or show other people how to become successful. To me, that's your own proprietary framework, because there could be somebody doing exactly the same thing as you, but the way that you're doing it, the process that you take somebody through, is probably different than the way that they're doing it. The more you can define that and wrap that into a process or a framework, the more successful you're going to be, because 1, it gives you clarity, 2, it gives your team clarity, and 3, it helps your customers know what they can expect from you and how you help them versus someone else. The more you dialed in you get that, the more successful you're going to be in selling and delivering your services or product. Okay, so like I talk about for almost every episode, how do you start? I want to walk through the 6-step framework, because here is the reality, is that if you nail these down, you, my friend, are on your way to creating that proprietary framework, creating that process, creating that online experience or offline experience. It doesn't really matter, right? That allows you to help people in a way that's consistent and repeatable and scalable. Okay, so the first one is to define the problem very, very clearly. The minute you go into content or information dumping is the minute you need to come back to the problem that you're trying to solve and stay focused on solving that problem and that problem only, not all the other things that you want to talk about. As you've defined the problem, now you need to come up with a measurable result or solution to that problem. And what that looks like is something that's actually measurable or quantifiable, right? So if somebody has a problem, what does it look like when it's solved? What is that outcome that they're going for? Typically, this is a dollar amount, a specific achievement, or a specific growth or outcome in a relationship or behavior or skill. So think through that, come up with that measurable result. Do not move forward until you've done both of these things. So often people say, oh yeah, I already know that. Oh yeah, I already know that. But here's the thing, is that this becomes the beginning and the end point to your framework. And so the more clearly you can define it, the better off you are, because what you tend to do is once you get down into the details, you'll start adding things, and then the path that you have created becomes diluted and it becomes confusing for people, both at the beginning as you're defining this and then as you're moving forward in helping your customers. When they get confused, when they expend too many brain calories, they bail and they don't finish because you've added in things that are off the path or are confusing for them. So always stay connected to the problem and the result. Then what I want you to do is brainstorm the exact process or steps that need to happen for somebody to go from the problem to the result. What is that journey? What is that specific sort of framework or process that you take somebody through, or you've gone through yourself, or you're helping somebody achieve? What does that look like? Usually it's 5 to 7 big steps. So map that out first. What I found is most helpful is that people grab Post-it notes and write each sort of process or big step on a Post-it note and throw it somewhere. So just get them all out of your head, because what happens is it's really hard to organize them when they're still jammed up in your head, right? Because there's so many. So get them all out. And then once you've gotten them all out, you'll probably have, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15. Then the goal is to start bucketing them into 5 or 7 steps. People can remember up to about 7 things. Otherwise, then they get distracted and they move on. So about 5 to 7 steps, and then map that out. So the map looks like the starting point, the ending point, and then the 5 to 7 steps in between there. That is the journey that somebody is going on. Then you need to put on your guide hat, and the guide hat says, okay, so here's the path that I've created and I've outlined for a person to become successful, right? To achieve that goal that they want to achieve. Now, where along the path are they going to get stuck? Where are the hurdles? Where are the obstacles? Where are the challenges that are difficult for them as they're going through the journey that you're taking them on? And typically there are probably maybe 3 to 4 big hurdles that somebody has to go through in order to become successful or to have a transformation, which we'll talk about in another episode. But usually there's sort of 3 or 4 big areas of contention that happen that people either bail or they need some additional help on. So identify those and put those somewhere on the journey map, wherever they appear. And then the 6th thing is like identify, and this says create, but maybe not create yet, but like identify, okay, so first of all, those are the hurdles and the obstacles they're going to have. What are the tools, the templates, checklists, various things that you can provide for them, especially during those times, that will help them jump over to that next step. So really help them get over those obstacles or hurdles that they're running into. All right, so that is the 6-step framework. That is exactly what I take my high ticket clients through, is this activity to define this. Once you have defined this, you have the entire foundation to your business, regardless if you're doing one-on-one, you're doing group, you're doing high ticket, you're doing an online course experience or a program or membership. It doesn't really matter what it is. You have the foundation that will help you grow in your business. So you can give this to your team and say, here is how we help people. Here are the exact steps we take them on. Here are the tools and the templates we use to get them from point A to point B. You can set up systems and course platforms that allow you to track how somebody is going through your proprietary process, and you can set up automations along the path to reward and recognize them for taking action. All right, there you go. That is, in a nutshell, how you use an online experience to set yourself free.